More on the foreign policy problems cluttering the president's desk, specifically Iran. Let's turn now to Flynt Leverett, the former National Security Council official under Mr. Bush, who is now at the New American Foundation. Thanks again for your time tonight, sir.
Thanks for having me.
18 months praising the virtues of collective action against that nation, against Iran, and this administration suddenly takes unilateral steps with sanctions, hoping that the coalition will follow afterwards. Is there a reason that sounds familiar, and is there any reason to believe it will be more successful now than it was in Iraq?
I don't think there's any reason to believe that this is going to be successful. The measures announced yesterday by Secretaries Rice and Paulson will certainly not generate strategic leverage over Iran that will make them change their position on the nuclear issue or other issues of concern that we have with them. It's a feckless course that was laid out yesterday, and it's basically a feckless strategy that the administration is pursuing.
It's feckless. Is it provocative as well? I mean, should those sanctions imposed yesterday be viewed as a provocation? Does it suggest pick up the gun thing from Shane, that we're trying to make Iran make some sort of first move?
Well, it will certainly be viewed as provocative in Tehran. I think it will be viewed as provocative in other important international capitals like Moscow, like Beijing, even in the capitals of some of our European partners like Germany. In terms of the intra-administration dynamic, I think it does indicate that the forces of moderation, such as they are on this issue in the administration, Secretary Rice perhaps, Undersecretary of State Nick Burns, that these forces are in fact losing control of the policy debate. They're losing standing on this issue. The course that they've laid out in the Security Council is not producing the kinds of results that they have promised. And harder line voices in the administration and elsewhere are gaining ascendancy in the policy discussion. And I think that the risk of a confrontation between now and the time that President Bush leaves office in January '09 is rising.
Can you interpret the various sounds on this subject made by Mr. Putin of Russia relative to what Secretary Rice said, suggesting that everybody is all in one corner on this regarding Iran?
You know, I think it is certainly true that the Russians don't want Iran to be a nuclear weapons state, but they are much more comfortable than we are with the idea that Iran could have a civil nuclear program that included some fuel cycle activity on their soil. I think they're much more comfortable with that than we are, and they are also balancing other interests here, not just their interests in and with Iran, but they have an important strategic concern from their perspective with what they see as excessive U.S. unilateralism. That's their view of the Iraq War. It was a unilateral assertion of force by the United States. They don't want this to happen again with regard to Iran. And if it does happen, they are trying to put in place things that would increase the political cost to the United States for yet another unilateral act of force in the Middle East.
So is there a way then to interpret this invocation of the Cuban Missile Crisis relative to the European missile system, the defense shield stuff? Was that just some sort of flare sent up from a guy in distress saying, look, I don't want this to get worse. You've got to understand what this feels like?
I think it was in a way more symbolic than real. There is no way that President Putin wants or anticipates a military confrontation between Russia and the United States. He believes that there is a whole series of things going back several years where the U.S. has unilaterally acted against or disregarded Russian interests. This radar site is one more example of that, and he is in various ways increasing the display of his displeasure.
And now we can rest safe in our beds, not worrying about the Russians, just worrying about everything else. Flynt Leverett, the former Middle East Senior Director on the National Security Council for the current Bush administration. Once again, sir, thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.